The smell of wildfire still clung to every shattered stone of King's Landing, a bitter tang that curled beneath the morning's still-rising heat and stirred faint echoes of screams now swallowed by dawn. Tywin Lannister stood alone atop the ramparts of the Gate of the Gods, his crimson cloak hanging motionless in air gone strangely windless after so many nights of roaring flames. Somewhere far below, a faint hammer rang out as a mason reset a loosened merlin with anxious taps. Farther still, the distant sob of a widow drifted up from Flea Bottom. Tywin listened to neither. Sunlight gleamed on the gold embroidery of his gorget and flashed in the pale green flecks of wildfire that clotted between cracked flagstones at his feet. Yet his lion-colored eyes remained fixed outward, following the pale gleam of the Blackwater as it curved south toward the sea. 5 crows pecked at charred timbers along the riverbank. Even carrion birds, it seemed, could not stomach the melted flesh that still bubbled atop the water's surface like cooling lard. Victory had been won, though one might be forgiven for mistaking it for defeat. He lifted his gauntlet and traced a single slow circle on the parapet's chipped granite, sanding away a soot-coated crust. Beneath the grime, the stone glittered with flecks of white quartz, the sort of hidden beauty only fire and pressure could reveal. That is the realm now, he mused. Fractured, scorched, and yet alive beneath its wounds if only the hand that guides it is steady. His own hand had steadied Westeros twice before, first when he was but a youth in his father's failing shadow, and again when Robert Baratheon's thunder threatened to wash Lannisport in blood. He could do so a third time, but only if weakness was rooted out as thoroughly as wildfire had scoured the Blackwater's banks. And so, with his silent oath pressed into the stone beneath his glove, Tywin turned away from the river and started down the stairwell toward Maegor's Holdfast, each footfall measured, unhurried, iron-bound, like the tolling of a great bronze bell that foretells a funeral yet brings comfort to mourners who yearn for order amid grief. The corridors of the Red Keep whispered as he passed, servants bowing so quickly their brows smudged dusty prints upon the marble floor, knights drawing themselves tall in polished plate that still smelled of lavender oil hastily applied to hide the stench of ash-soaked leather. Many wore fresh bandages beneath their rear braces and gauntlets. The battle had not spared them, but even wounds were now badges of loyalty to House Lannister. When the Lord of Casterly Rock passed, men bled a little prouder. He paused outside the small council chamber, palms resting lightly atop the lion-headed pommels of the doors. Beyond, muted voices fluttered. Varys's silken tenor, the low drone of Pycelle, and the restless scrape of parchment that could only belong to Littlefinger. Tywin closed his eyes for an instant, picturing the faces arranged around the narrow table. The Spider with his bland smile and sly secrets, the Grand Maester stooped with age yet wily as any jackal, the Master of Coin whose ambitions outstripped his purse, and somewhere near the hearth Tyrion, half-brother, half-puzzle, half-spark, wrapped in enough bandage to clothe a septon, yet still capable of lighting fires no wildfire could match. A lesser lord might fear such company. Tywin did not, but he understood that a lion's roar must sometimes become a low rumble lest the pride begin to wonder if the forest truly belongs to him. He pushed the doors open and stepped into candlelight. 12 heads pivoted. 12 sets of eyes flinched as if exposed to sudden glare. None spoke. Tywin did not sit. He simply stood at the apex of the table's curve, gloved hands folded behind his back, crimson cloak spilling like spilt wine onto the rushes. He let the hush deepen until the room itself seemed to draw breath in anticipation. At sunrise, he began, voice calm as a whetstone sliding along steel. The Blackwater burned. By sunset, the realm must be tempered. The words drifted outward, soft yet heavy, settling upon every man present like freshly laid coin. They waited for more, but Tywin offered only silence aided by a single measured glance that moved from chair to chair. Pycelle first, who swallowed so loudly it could be heard above the hearth. Varys next, whose round face betrayed nothing but whose hands twitched ever so slightly at his sleeves. Littlefinger, smile sharpening as though he'd tasted honey laced with vinegar. Ser Meryn Trant in Kingsguard white too pristine for any man who had truly faced death. And finally, Tyrion, who watched his father with eyes half hooded by purple bruising and a curiosity that had cost him nose and nearly life. Only Tyrion did not avert his gaze. If the boy felt any fear, it hid beneath the scorn of pain. Tywin inclined his head a fraction to the imp, granting neither approval nor reproach, but the barest recognition of survival, and then gestured toward the table. "Seat." Chairs creaked as bodies obeyed. Even Tyrion lowered himself, wincing when broken ribs barked, yet his smirk never faltered. Tywin remained standing. "Our victory," he said, "means nothing unless the realm knows who delivered it. Ravens fly by noon. Each must carry tidings that House Lannister broke Stannis Baratheon upon the Blackwater, and that King Joffrey sits secure because his grandsire bled for him." Littlefingers scratched at parchment, tallying coin that might be wrung from grateful lords once word spread. Varys murmured promises of whispers in Old Town and Gulltown. Pycelle nodded until his beard trembled like reeds in a flood. Tyrion alone snorted. "Grateful lords," he repeated, voice dry. "Yes, gratitude flows so readily from empty purses and burned granaries." Tywin's gaze drifted to him. "Then best we fill the purses before the hunger becomes revolt. And who shall pay for that, father? The treasury is a hollow drum. Beat it and you only annoy the crows." "The crows will be fed," Tywin replied. "On Harrenhal's stores if need be. On the Ironborn's plunder. On whatever gold remains beneath Casterly Rock's veins. The realm will see that the lion spares no cost to mend what lesser men have shattered." Tyrion opened his mouth to respond. Tywin lifted one finger. The half-formed retort lingered, then withered in the vinegary twist of the imp's lips. Victory required unity, and unity sometimes required muzzling even the most cunning of pups. Outside the chamber windows, King's Landing groaned beneath its ruins. Smoke still rose from the blackened bones of ships that lay half-submerged like giant ribcages splitting the tide. Yet inside, plans unfurled. Tywin assigned columns of Manderly levies to patrol Flea Bottom and quell looters, ordered Pycelle to purge the city's water cisterns lest rank stench breed plague, dispatched Lannister knights to commandeer food from the riverlands now that the young wolf lay 200 leagues north and bleeding with each league. Every directive fell like hammer on hot iron, shaping the chaos into a blade only one hand could wield. By midday the council dispersed. Tywin lingered only long enough to watch each man leave, Littlefinger striding with predatory grace, already rehearsing the boasts he would feed to gullible ears. Pycelle shuffling, smile smug with renewed favor. Varys gliding as silently as a feather on still air. Tyrion hobbling, shoulders set in defiance, laughter rasping out once he believed himself beyond earshot. Tywin noted each detail, each weakness, each hidden fire. In war, swords cut flesh. In peace, knowledge cut deeper. He descended spiraling stairs into the courtyard where corpses had been piled for burning. The charnel stench curdled the stomach, yet Tywin regarded the bodies with dispassion. A commander must value his men, yes, but never love them, else he forget the cost of victory. A gold-plated gauntlet brushed against a fallen Lannister banner that lay soaked in blood at the pyre's base. He lifted the fabric, wiped soot from the lion's visage, then draped it gently over the shoulders of a dead boy who could not have seen more than 16 name days. The motion shocked the surrounding guards. They pretended not to notice, but a memory flickered within Tywin. His own twin brother Tyg, lost before a second breath, and the hollowness their father carried ever after. No lion should be wasted, yet war wasted so many. That too he would change. Afternoon brought audience with Ser Kevan, returned from the Golden Tooth with 500 fresh spears. Kevin's calm steadiness was balm after the oily shuffle of the small council. Together they charted supply lines through the King's Road, weighed loyalty of Stormlords who might yet abandon Renly's ghost to bend knee, and debated which of the Tyrell host could be trusted to guard the city's gates now that House Tyrell had purchased alliance with roses instead of swords. In every matter, Kevan deferred to Tywin, but the elder Lannister listened. A wise man plucked counsel from those who shared his blood and his cause. And so plans multiplied, each branching into contingencies, each contingency hedged by coin and fear. By evening, a courier galloped north bearing parchment sealed in crimson wax that named Roose Bolton Warden of the North should he deliver the head of Robb Stark. Tywin's fingers lingered on the wax until it cooled. Wolves and lions could never share a forest. Night fell like a velvet hood, and torches painted long shadows along the serpentine steps that led to the Hand's Solar. In that high chamber, maps of the 7 kingdoms sprawled across an oaken table. Rivers traced in lapis, roads in strands of copper wire, castles in pewter miniatures. Tywin moved the pieces one by one, aligning Tully Trout beneath a red lion, sliding the golden rose of Highgarden nearer the gates of King's Landing, nudging the Stag of Storm's End onto the Kingswood where guerrilla bands still harried wagons bound for the city. Each movement felt like a heartbeat. Each heartbeat wove destiny. And in his mind, Tywin heard the faint echo of a hammer forging a sword whose steel would bear his name for 1,000 years. At length, a soft knock rapped upon the door. "Enter," he called. The door swung inward to reveal Cersei, clad in black velvet trimmed with rubies that shimmered like embers. Her golden hair spilled across her shoulders, a river of sunlight in candle-spoiled gloom, yet her eyes were twin storms. She stepped over the threshold with grace honed by a lifetime of courtiers but halted 2 paces short of the table. Pride and fear warred in the set of her jaw. "Father," the single word trembled before composing itself. "Tommen is weeping again. He dreams of ships burning and men drowning in green fire. Maester Franken says it will pass, but She stopped. Bite swallowed her next plea. Cersei had learned long ago Tywin did not soothe fear with gentle voices. Still, she had come. Tywin straightened a figurine of a golden lion perched upon the rock, then faced her. "Your brother Jaime endured weeping atop the battlements of Casterly Rock when first he glimpsed the sea raging during autumn storms. He feared drowning though he stood upon stone. I brought him to the very edge, let the spray strike his face, and bade him stare until the fear passed." He watched her absorb the memory. "Take Tommen to the docks. Let him touch the charred hulks. Let him smell smoke until it sickens him. Then take him through the city. Show him the people who live because the ships burned. Fear fused to knowledge becomes strength." Cersei's breath hitched, but she nodded. "And Joffrey. Joffrey must see something else." Tywin tapped the pewter stag now toppled across the Kingswood. "I will ride with him to the Kingswood tomorrow. He will watch justice delivered to looters and deserters. He will wield the sword, and he will learn the price of disobedience." A flicker of doubt crept across Cersei's features, doubt of what such lessons might render in her already volatile son, but she said only, "He will obey you." She lingered, lashes lowering. "Will you dine with us tonight?" "In time." Tywin dismissed her gently but firmly. Family required presence, but the realm required more. He would join them, yes, but first the map must be set so that even while he slept, the pieces moved as he ordained. Cersei dipped a curtsy and glided away like a queen whose crown was woven of shadows. When she was gone, Tyrion emerged from a tapestried alcove he had ducked behind earlier in search of old Dornish wine. A fresh bandage crossed his cheek. The wound seeped still. He poured himself a goblet without invitation and took a long draught. "You mean to fashion Joff into a second Maegor," he said, voice tight. "A terror to cow the realm." Tywin did not look up from the map. "I mean to fashion him into a king. A fine line that one history may smudge." Tyrion limped closer, gaze roving the pewter pieces. "Bolton's flayed man in the north. Risky, father. The north remembers, as they never cease to remind us. The north forgets when winter threatens." Tywin's tone sharpened. "They will shelter beneath whatever flag shields them from famine. Perhaps." Tyrion swirled wine. "Yet wolves bite even when starved. And how fares Sansa Stark, our little hostage? Have you found a new use for her now that the Tyrells supply a more lucrative bride?" Tywin's eyes lifted, cold and hard. "Sansa will marry a Lannister." "Which one?" "Whichever serves the realm." The answer hung like a headsman's axe. Tyrion said nothing further. Wine flashed in torchlight as he drained the last drops, wiped his mouth, and hobbled toward the door. At the threshold he paused. "Be careful, father. Flames that sear an enemy can turn. given wind enough. He tapped 2 fingers to his brow in a mock salute and vanished into the hall. Tywin listened to the echo fade, then returned to the map. He moved the red lion across the neck, brushing aside small pewter trees representing the crannogmen of Greywater Watch. Every path northward required crossing that mire, but paths could be built upon stone and gold if enough hands laid them. He would buy those hands, and break those he could not buy. It was late when at last he left the solar, but his gait showed no weariness. The gods had sided with wildfire. Now he would ensure they bowed to orderly flame. Sleep found him only for an hour before trumpets blared at dawn, announcing the arrival of Ser Loras Tyrell escorting a fresh levy of Highgarden men in silvered helms crowned with golden petals. Tywin met them in the embers of the throne room where melted gilding still streaked the floor. Loras knelt, pledged sword and heart to King Joffrey, but his eyes sought recognition from a king absent this red dawn. Tywin granted none. Instead he clasped the Knight of Flowers by the forearm, lifted him, and spoke of fields yet to be sown with Tyrell grain. Beneath the language of alliance hummed the unspoken truth. Roses grew where lions allowed, and petals could be plucked. News arrived that evening as candles were lit in the September of Baelor for a mass of thanksgiving. Stannis had fled Dragonstone, his fleet shattered and his army scattered across the Stormlands. Yet rumors spread of Shadowborn assassinations among the Stormlord ranks, barons found strangled by sinewy, invisible hands. Tywin weighed each report, parsing hyperbole from threat. Sorcery was a weapon only fools discounted outright, but steel killed sorcerers the same as any man. He dispatched Ser Adam Marbrand to secure Dragonstone with siege engines and ravenous hunger. Fire could not birth a kingdom. Garrison Stone, however, could hold one indefinitely. As days folded into one another, King's Landing stirred beneath the relentless rhythm of reconstruction. Smiths rang anvils beside forges fueled by charcoal shipped from the Rainwood. Masons erected scaffolding across the city walls, resetting each stone as if reforging armor at titanic scale. Tywin walked the streets, cloaked in plain wool with only a single guardsman trailing at distance. He listened to fishmongers' haggle, to seamstresses' gossip, to beggars curse wildfire's ruin. Everywhere his unseen presence seeded tidings of a hand who walked among his people. Such tales would sprout where coin might fail. One morning he halted beside a pyre where septons burnt the last of the plague-swollen corpses dredged from the Blackwater's tours. Amid the crackle of bone he noticed a small girl kneeling, hands clasped, eyes fixed on the flames as though they might reveal her family's ghosts. Tywin stepped forward, produced a golden stag from his pouch, Robert's coin still minted in Casterly Rock's own dye, and placed it in her palm. "Buy bread," he said. She stared, tears mixing with ash to streak her cheeks. He moved on without waiting for thanks. Months hence, when the girl told neighbors that the hand of the king had fed her, Tywin knew her story would weigh more than any edict penned upon parchment. In the Red Keep, Tywin's reshaping of the court advanced apace. Pycelle's chains grew shorter, tethering his counsel to matters of poultice and potion rather than policy. Littlefinger found his accounts regularly inspected by Kevin, whose dull honesty set limits on the master of coin's creative tallies. Varys, ever adaptable, brought whispers that could be proven rather than rumors that titillated. The spider understood the new hand demanded verifiable webs. Yet the most delicate matter remained Tyrion. The imp's popularity among commoners, earned during the siege, sparkled like a dagger in Tywin's periphery. A weapon wielded wrongly could gut the realm. So one eve, Tywin invited his son to dine in the solar. No guards stood inside. Only a single candle flickered and a decanter of Myrish fire wine steamed with spices. They ate quail stuffed with figs, silent save for the crackle of hearth. At last Tywin set aside his knife. "You will travel to Gulltown within the fortnight," he said, voice mild. "Lord Grafton requires a new master of coin, and I have recommended you." Tyrion's goblet froze midway to his mouth. Exile gilded as appointment? Responsibility, not exile. Gulltown's treasury bleeds. Your talents can stanch it. And remove me conveniently from meddling in King's Landing. Tywin's stare was iron unmoving. "You are my son. I will see you wield power where power is required. Joffrey's court is shaped. Now the veil needs binding." Tyrion considered, wine swirling. "Very well," he said at length, "but I will take Shay." "No," Tyrion laughed without mirth. "Then we remain at impasse." "You will go," Tywin said, "or you will remain in chains until you relent." Silence stretched. Flames hissed when a log split, embers spiraling like tiny red eyes. Tyrion's shoulders slumped. "Chains?" he whispered, and Tywin heard not surrender but the echo of Casterly Rock's dungeons, where once a lesser lord had begged for mercy his crimes did not merit. Tywin drained his own cup, tasting victory but not savoring it. He rang for guards who escorted Tyrion to his chambers with courtesy sharp as unsheathed steel. The matter would conclude swiftly. A lion's cub could not choose where it roamed if the pride's survival lay elsewhere. Autumn winds soon carried salt tang upriver, and with them came ships from Old Town bearing grain, septons, and letters from the Reach extolling Tywin's justice. Winter, the maesters warned, crept south upon frosted hooves. Even the Dornish shore felt chill. Yet Queen Cersei's court glittered brighter than ever, pearls and emeralds draping throats that only months earlier had gulped smoke. Gold cloaks patrolled Broa. D avenues now swept clean. Beggars received crusts rather than kicks. Order, Tywin understood, was a performance as much as policy. The realm watched and believed. Still, storms brewed beyond gilded horizons. Robb Stark's victories in the west had slowed but not ceased. Rumor claimed he courted Frey's, Frey's courted ambitions, and Bolton's knives grew sharper with each passing dusk. Across the narrow sea, whispers drifted of a young queen with dragons. Tywin consulted old scrolls describing Valyrian warfare and ordered wildfire stockpiled in secret cellars. Dragons, he reasoned, were as mortal as men when steel split their hearts. On the eve of the new year, a raven arrived from Riverrun blacker than pitch, its message sealed with trout wax. Hoster Tully had died. Tywin read the letter twice, weighing the ripples. Catelyn Stark, now bereft of father and daughters. Edmure untested and anxious. The Riverlands vulnerable to promises of peace. He summoned Daven Lannister, charged him to ride for Riverrun bearing terms of alliance sealed by marriage to a rock-bred niece. When Daven questioned which niece, Tywin replied, "One willing to serve her house. Duty above love, a lesson few learned soon enough." Weeks ground onward beneath the thrum of strategy. Tywin rose before dawn, sparred with Ser Adam until sweat soaked his tunic, consulted maps, penned letters, and judged petitions from lords minor whose knees ached against marble. At table he ate little and drank less. Yet in quiet moments before darkness yielded to dawn, he allowed himself to stand again upon the ramparts above the Gate of the Gods, inhaling cold wind unsullied by ash. The river, once black-green with death, now shimmered silver beneath moonlight. Ships floated there anew. Tyrell galleys painted bright, Dornish cogs with striped sails, a dozen river barges heavy with grain. Life flowed, and because he lived, the realm endured. Below, in dim streets, children chased one another through puddles that reflected lantern glow like scattered stars. They laughed, clear, high, fearless. Tywin closed his eyes, listened. Somewhere deep within, a faint warmth stirred, fragile as first grass upon wintered stone. He did not stifle it. Rulers might be forged in iron, but realms thrived on tender roots. Yet no root grew unthreatened. On a crisp morning, a hooded stranger arrived bearing a letter sealed with black wax stamped by a leech. Balon Greyjoy had died when a wooden bridge snapped beneath storm-lashed wind. The Iron Islands were leaderless and ripe for war. Tywin sent ravens to Pike offering gold for ships, steel for loyalty, salt wives for silence. If the Krakens could not be tamed, they could at least be steered toward Stark shores. Through every decision, Tywin's survival at the siege cast a long shadow. Had wildfire consumed him that night, King's Landing would lie in ashes. The war would fracture into chaos none could steer. But he had endured, and so the game endured. a game whose pieces he now commanded with ruthless clarity. Yet he knew as each breath drew, so too could it cease. A crossbow bolt loosed by a vengeful sun, a knife in the night, a gout of dragon fire. Any could end him. The impermanence lent urgency to every heartbeat. Thus, when tidings reached the Red Keep that Robb Stark marched south again, Tywin did not send proxies. He donned his golden armor, rode at the head of 20,000 Lannister spears glittering beneath banners that caught the sun like crimson flame. The city watched the column depart, children cheering, mothers praying, merchants calculating. As hoofs thundered across the Dragon Gate, Tywin glanced back over his shoulder at the crown of towers and walls he had saved, and he felt the same certainty that steeled him at 14 when he first rallied bannermen against the Rains. Some men are chosen by gods, others by the simple will to seize fate and bind it. The road north stretched long and fraught, but every league echoed with clamor of forges Tywin had commanded to work day and night, shaping spearheads tempered in Lannisport furnaces. Along rivulets swollen by autumn rains, farmers paused from harvest to stare. Some bowed, some spat, yet all stepped aside. Fear and respect often wore identical masks. At Maidenpool, he received word that Stannis had conjured new forces from Lys and Volantis, red-robed priests chanting omens. "Let the priestesses light their fires," Tywin told Ser Kevan. "We shall answer with steel quenched in their blood." He ordered blacksmiths to plate great stone siege towers with iron soaked in river mud, protection against flame and lightning alike. Men whispered he meant to wage war on gods. Tywin answered that any god who meddled in mortal rule was merely a tyrant by another name. On the banks of the Trident, trumpets blared beneath gray clouds. Stark outriders met Lannister scouts in thunderous clashes that churned the riverbank into crimson paste. Tywin watched from a rise, face impassive, as his vanguard lured Grey Wind into a trap of caltrops. The direwolf howled, sprung free, vanished into reeds. Wolves were cunning, but lions knew waiting. Night before the battle, Tywin walked the camp, inspecting pickets, checking catapult tensions, speaking a word to every 10th man. He found a spearman shivering though the air was warm, a boy no older than 17. Tywin lifted the lad's chin. "Name, Tomard, M-Lord. You fear death, Tomard?" "Aye, so do I." The boy's eyes widened at the admission. "But fear is a sword. Grasp it and strike. Let it fall and you are cut." Tywin laid a hand on Tomard's breastplate. "Tomorrow you will stand beside your brothers. Fear will stand with you, but it shall serve you, not slay you." The lad's shoulders squared. Tywin moved on. Dawn broke red as spilled wine. Fog clung to reeds along the Trident where Robb Stark's host gathered. A tide of gray and blue steel flecked with banners of trout and flayed men. Tywin watched their ranks shift, felt the distant thrum of drums. He dismounted, knelt in mud, scooped a handful, and smelled damp earth. "Begin," he said. Horns roared. Lannister siege towers lurched forward. Arrow storms blackened the sky. Every cry, every clash, every splash of blood upon mud played a note in Tywin's silent symphony. He directed reserves with curt gestures, shifted cavalry arcs to shatter Stark flanks softened by volleys of scorpion bolts. When Robb's vanguard punched a hole in the center, Tywin held the line with fresh spears, then rolled the lion's roar down both wings, enveloping the Northmen in a red maw. By dusk, the Trident ran thick with bodies. Amid wreckage, Roose Bolton's sigil stood untouched. The Leech Lord had bided, had watched. He brought forward his forces only when victory was certain, kneeling before Tywin with false humility and eyes like thin ice. Tywin accepted the oath but trusted the man no more than a viper trained to sleep. Robb Stark escaped under moonless dark, slipping through tangled forest with a ragged guard. The war would continue, but its tide had turned. Tywin ordered a pyre for the dead, north and south alike. He watched flames lick sky, casting orange light upon his gold armor. In that glow, men glimpsed not a lord but something larger, an inevitability as relentless as sunrise. Weeks later, when Tywin returned to King's Landing, winter's first chill rode the wind. Snowflakes drifted through the Dragon Gate, melting on cobblestones still warm from autumn sun. The city greeted him with cheers that echoed off walls newly repaired and banners newly hung. Cersei met him in the courtyard, cloak lined with sable, crown glinting beneath overcast sky. She knelt, pressing lips to his mailed hand. Joffrey, sour of expression, bowed less deeply, yet bowed. Tommen smiled shyly. Myrcella, returned from Dorne under escort, curtsied with grace beyond her years. Tywin raised them one by one, then mounted the steps to the Iron Throne. He did not sit. That seat belonged to a king, and kings were seldom steady. Instead he stood before its jagged blades, turned to face lords and ladies thronging the hall, and spoke only a single sentence. Peace is forged, not found. Silence followed, then thunderous applause. Amid the clamor, Tywin Lannister allowed himself a slow breath. The siege had not claimed him, and because he lived, a fragile peace might yet strengthen into legacy. But war, like winter, always returned. He would meet it, lion, lord, and hand, until final breath or final foe. For now, the realm breathed with him, and somewhere beyond the horizon, dragons wheeled, wolves prowled, and shadows whispered. Tywin's eyes lifted toward unseen stars, calculating futures not yet born, forging them in the furnace of his unyielding will. Tywin Lannister rose before dawn each day after his return, always before the cock crowed, always before the steward stirred the embers of the hearth, so that he might stand upon the Tower of the Hand's eastern balcony and watch pale light unfold across Blackwater Bay. The faint chill of winter on the horizon needled his cheeks while gulls wheeled above gutted hulks still half sunk along the far shore, and in that thin hush he measured the pulse of the realm. A city's coughing chimneys, the shudder of rigging on merchant cogs anchored mid-channel, the distant creak of gates as gold cloaks changed the watch. Everything alive beat its rhythm to purpose. Everything dead reminded him of failure. Only by holding both could he see the path ahead. When the sun rimmed the water, he turned from contemplations and descended into corridors where servants already lined his route with torches guttering in fresh oil. He allowed no flutters of cloak, no hurried stride. Command began in showing one's mastery of minutes as well as men. Kevin awaited him in the outer hall, male hauberk hidden beneath a plain surcoat of lion red, eyes clear despite the hour. Together they moved through the sprawl of council duties, writs for grain levies in the Mander Valley, replacement of corrupt dockmasters, discreet purchase of sell sails and pentos should Stannis rise again under Lawleress' scarlet shadow. Each parchment Tywin signed with measured flourish, sealing wax still warm when silken couriers whisked it away. Tyrion's absence in Gulltown grew into a silence at once useful and worrisome. Reports filtered south that the imp had indeed stemmed Lord Grafton's hemorrhaging treasury, collecting outdated taxes with implacable arithmetic, charming fisher guilds by forgiving a year's debt only to exact twice that in loans soon after. But Tywin also read lines between lines. Gatherings at Gulltown taverns where miners spoke candidly of the little lion who drank with them. A surge of broadsheets lampooning King Joffrey's extravagance while praising invisible hands who fed orphans with their own coin. Influence could bloom like rot if left unattended. Thus, he dispatched Ser Lal Crakehall with a crate of arbor gold, ostensibly a gift. Yet within the false bottom lay a sealed directive. Watch Tyrion, weigh every ally, and should the imp's ambition outpace duty, trim it as one prunes jasmine before it chokes a wall. Inside King's Landing, the Tyrells unfurled splendor like banners on wind. Lady Marjorie, escorted by septas and 100 guards in livery of green and gold, strode daily through the market squares distributing loaves shaped as roses. Her smile so radiant beggars wept for love rather than hunger. Tywin studied her from an arcade above the fishmonger's plaza, unseen save by Kevin. Charm is armor, he observed, hearing the shrill cheers rise as doves released from hidden baskets scattered above her procession. And armor can hide daggers. Kevin only nodded. They both recalled how the Reach had once backed Renly, how even now a single whisper from Highgarden could pivot 6 Southron houses to another suitor should alliances sour. So Tywin extended the velvet glove. Lavish pageants in the Queen's ballroom, chivalric fates where Loras Tyrell unhorsed seasoned knights to roars from gawking crowds, a promise that the royal wedding, to be staged come spring, would outshine Aegon's coronation itself. Behind each generous gesture, however, he closed claws of iron. Coin for festivities came not from the crown's hollow coffers but from loans levied against reach harvests, payable in gold dragons rather than grain, thus securing food supply while binding Mace Tyrell to obligations beyond pride. Night by night, the Red Keep's forges thundered. Journeyman smiths hammered scales of an enormous new chain. Links wrought from Oromar steel mined in Lannisport's westernmost tunnels. Whisperers murmured of some new defense to replace wildfire stores nearly spent. Only Tywin, Kevin, and a single blindfolded master metallurgist knew its purpose. On crisp evenings, Tywin walked the foundry galleries, sparks leaping around him like fireflies. The clangor echoed in his chest, a metallic heartbeat that promised readiness against dragons rumored across the water. Cersei watched these preparations with mounting annoyance. Her power had once filled throne room chambers like perfume. Now she sensed it diluted, soaked into silks of reach courtiers and edicts stamped by a hand who rarely consulted before acting. She confronted her father during a lull between meetings, catching him alone in the library where thousand-year-old ledgers waited in dust-sweet hush. "You undermine me," she declared, voice brittle. Tywin closed a tome on agricultural levies. "I preserve you." She stalked nearer, green eyes blazing. "Preserve? You use me as vessel. Joffrey, Tommen, even Myrcella, they learn devotion to you, not to their queen regent." "Good." He spoke the word softly, letting it sink like lead. "A queen regent is a bridge, not a throne. She must endure until the crown can stand by itself." He gestured to a map unrolled across the table. Wax pin tokens showing Bolton and the Dreadfort, Greyjoy ships hugging Cape Kraken, and a lone pewter dragon perched on Lys. News of Daenerys Targaryen's emerging legend had finally reached him. "The realm requires stone, Cersei, not banners of silk. You will hold the stone while I set the mortar." She might have argued longer, but at that moment a steward hurried in with scrolls sealed in black wax. Tywin sliced it open, scanned, and felt a tiny tightening behind his ribs. Robb Stark had vanished 3 nights prior from his encampment near Seaguard, leaving false trails in 6 directions. Scouts reported glimpses of a lean wolf host coursing through the neck as though intent on Dorne's deserts. Tywin traced the route on his map, eyes narrowing, then summoned ravens for White Harbor, Moat Cailin, and Sunspear. Wolves loose in reeds must be funneled toward snares. Winter deepened, turning dusk sky to hammered bronze. Candlelit halls bustled with scribes tallying stores. Maesters brewed tinctures against flux. Merchants from Norvos arrived bearing furs so thick fleas could not breach them. Tywin's council expanded nights as well as mornings, endless parades of minor lords seeking audience so they might pledge fealty anew, or beg coin, or air grievances about Sells-word bands pillaging their villages. Tywin listened to each. Some he dispatched with promises, others with threats, a few with quiet instructions to Qyburn, whose laboratory beneath the rookery now housed more cages than bookshelves. Results came swift. A rumored rapist lordling found sewn into a sack full of scorpions. A smuggler turned informant elevated to command a Blackwater patrol. Justice that spurred fear, fear that bred order. Amid such governance, Joffrey's nature festered. The boy king relished parade inspections, insisted on sentencing criminals himself, and took to watching the headsman's sword fall with parted lips. Once, during a banquet, he demanded a fool juggle 3 kittens. When the fool protested, Joffrey replaced kittens with live torches and laughed as the man screamed in flames. Word slipped quickly down alleyways, carrying new taste of dread. Tywin confronted the king privately in the solar. He spoke without raised voice, yet the shadows seemed to tremble. "Fear is coin easily spent, Joffrey. Spend too freely and men will hoard hatred instead." Joffrey, flushed and sullen, vowed obedience. Whether the vow held Tywin would test in days to follow. During one test, the inspection of a newly drilled regiment, Joffrey slipped, calling a Weatherford knight pig-faced forager. The insult, barked before 300 soldiers, set jaws tight. Tywin stepped forward, hand on Joffrey's shoulder, and forced him to restate his words as jest, then turned to the knight. A king's jest cuts deep, so must his apology heal. He made Joffrey present the man with a cloak of argent brocade and command token to his own guard detail. The crowd's murmurs thawed. Later, Tywin told Joffrey of Aerys' doom. A king burns when he mistakes cruelty for strength. The boy shivered. Whether from lesson or cold wind whipping through the courtyard arches none could tell. Still Robb Stark eluded pursuit. Reports flickered. A dire wolf slaughter in the Wolfswood. A village near Widow's Watch found abandoned save for charred sigils of Bolton nailed to doors. Bolton's men grumbled that the young wolf sought vengeance for their perfidy at the Trident. Tywin studied each tale, saw pattern. Stark aimed not for South or Dorne, but to circle home, sever traitors, then burst south again at moment of his choosing. So Tywin penned a letter not to Roose Bolton but to his bastard son, promising lands and legitimacy should the bastard of Bolton capture or kill his father with proof returned south. Then Tywin sealed a second parchment to Lord Wyman Manderley, offering him the office of Master of Ships, and a ransom of kin freed from Frye dungeons, if he would close White Harbor to any Stark banner until hostage terms were met. He released both ravens under moon shadow, watching them arrow north like silent bolts loosed at hidden prey. Days later, Varys approached Tywin in the garden where lemon trees flourished out of season in glass-paneled conservatories warmed by dragonfire braziers. "News, my lord?" murmured the eunuch, fluttering a scented scroll. "From Essos the dragons live." Tywin accepted the parchment. It spoke of three-winged shadows over Meereen, of blackened siege towers toppled in molten ruin, of mercenary captains whispering the name Daenerys like prayer. He closed his eyes briefly. Dragons, wildfire, siege chains, each a hinge upon which history swiveled. He ordered Varys to dispatch golden envoys to Braavos and Volantis, buying scribes, mapmakers, and spies. Every ship leaving Slaver's Bay must carry hawkfeather quills disguised as trade seals, each dipped in rare ink that vanished after first reading, preserving secrets. At night, Tywin dreamed seldom, but when sleep stole him during those weeks, it delivered images. Green fire blooming where red keep once stood, shadows of wings blotting sun, the clatter of coins as faceless men bargained children of lions to strangers across the sea. He would wake in darkness and pace cedar-scented halls until dawn, reciting taxation tables in his mind to chase phantoms. Spring budded. Almond blossoms dusted courtyards pink and white. The day of Joffrey and Marjorie's nuptials finally arrived beneath cloudless sky. Pavilions draped in crimson velvet and emerald silk stretched from the September of Baelor down the Street of Sisters, each heavy with garlands of rose and lion rampant. Lords outdid one another in finery. Dornish envoys arrived wearing sunburst brooches of orange garnet the size of doves' eggs. Even the Iron Bank of Braavos sent a silver delegation bearing ledger gifts. Tywin arranged himself behind the king's dais, gold armor buffed bright, face unreadable. As vows were spoken, he watched crowds, their posture, their hush, their spontaneous cheer erupting like a single exhalation.
No naif gliamed, no crossbopt banhed.
The feast stretched from midday until torches were lit. Singers from lists performed ballads. Dwarfs in stag and wolf helms jousted on pigs, though Tywin nearly cancelled the act when he glimpsed Joffrey's delight at the humiliation. Yet Marjorie leaned to her new husband, whispered something, and Joffrey suddenly laughed in a softer register, tossing the dwarf's silver stags rather than lashes of tongue. Tywin inclined his head a fraction to her. The girl knew how to guide a fire without extinguishing its heat. Wine flowed heavier after sundown. Tywin drank sparingly, eyes ever moving. He saw Sansa Stark seated near a dais cluster of Reach maidens, her face eerily calm, as though carved in winter glass. He saw Littlefinger hovering by the fountain, smile predatory. He saw Oberyn Martell exchanging low words with Grand Maester Pycelle, an unlikely pairing that set Tywin's mind ticking. But trouble never showed its face. When the last course of honey-stewed quail arrived and the king still breathed, Tywin permitted himself a shallow breath of relief. 2 mornings after the wedding, a raven arrived from the twins. Walder Frye bristled. Manderley's refused safe passage to a Frye bride heading north. Furthermore, Bolton retinues reported restiveness among hill clans outside the Dreadfort. Walder demanded recompense. Tywin penned a swift reply, "Stand firm. Reward follows loyalty. Wolves devour sheep who stray." Then he dispatched ravens west. "Call the banners of House Lannister and prepare to march once more." Robb Stark's gambit neared its climax. Before riding, Tywin sought a final audience with Tommen and Myrcella. He knelt to Tommen's height, placed a carved onyx lion into the boy's palm. "When fear grips," he said, "press this until your fingers hurt. Pain reminds us we live, and living we rule." Myrcella he hugged briefly. She whispered, "Bring our men home." He replied, "I will bring peace home." Neither oath, he knew, could be fully kept, but children believed in absolutes. Their faith lent strength to uncertain grown men. The host departed King's Landing like a river of scarlet and gold. Behind, the city's gates clanged shut under command of Lord Tyrell, Mace exalted to acting steward. Tywin chose the King's Road north only until Derry, then veered east, threading narrow heaths seldom traveled, banking on speed rather than spectacle. Scouts fanned ahead. On the 10th night, they found Bolton encamped on a snowy rise overlooking Widow's Water, banners snapping listless in cold breeze. But Roose lay abed, throat slit, basted in his own pink blood. It was Ramsay who greeted Tywin in the command tent. Kneeling, holding forth his father's flayedman sigil now folded inside out to display blank cloth. "Proof of loyalty," Ramsay murmured, eyes bright as frost. Tywin stared long. One gave prizes to dogs who brought down wolves, but one also muzzled them after feeding. He accepted Ramsay's fealty and stationed a cordon of Lannister guards round his pavilion before dawn. Robb Stark struck 3 nights later. Under guise of truce envoys, he infiltrated Bolton's fractured camp, leading 200 picked men masked as Karstark outriders. They carved through sentries before horns could sound, seizing wagons stacked with Lannister armor. Tywin's own supply train captured through boltless hubris, but they did not remain to fight pitched battle. Instead they vanished into timberland, leaving behind casks smashed, lions painted over with direwolf paw slashes. Tywin gazed upon wreckage at first light, jaw tight. Loss of arms hurt less than insult delivered. He convened war council among whispering pines. Kevin advised patience. Let the wolf outrun his own supply lines. Ser Adam Marbrand urged pursuit before Stark slipped south. Ramsay suggested burning every village from Moat Cailin to Maidenpool until wolves starved. Tywin listened, then traced Robb's likely arc along nigh impassable highlands east of the Green Fork. He hunts symbolism, Tywin concluded. He will strike where a lion's roar must echo loudest. He marked the map. Raventree Hall, once proud vassal to Tully, lately garrisoned by a token Lannister force. There, ancient weirwoods towered like silent judges. If Robb raised his banner before those gods, northern hearts would rally. Tywin broke camp at dusk, drove his host hard southeast through night roads made silver by moonlight. They marched 30 leagues in a day, boots trampling early snowdrops, horses dropping from exhaustion. Yet as dawn tinted the sky violet, banners of the dire wolf indeed flickered above Raventree's crumbling wall. Smoke curl rose from its granaries, burning already. Tywin arrayed his men in crescent, siege scorpions hauled to 4. He offered single parley. Robb appeared on rampart, mail dulled by soot, gray eyes bright behind a helm dented at temple. The two measured each other across arrow flight of empty air. No trumpets sounded. Tywin hailed first, voice carrying, "Yield, and your Northmen see home before first frost." Robb answered, "Yield, and every child of the North grows up wearing a lion's chain." He raised a torch. At the base of the weirwood within the yard, Bolton corpses hung flayed. A grisly row that fluttered in cold wind like tattered banners. Symbol against symbol. Negotiation ended. The battle lasted hours in driving sleet. Lannister ladders scraped stone. Brack's men at arms scaled, only to meet Karstark axes atop parapet. Scorpions thudded iron bolts into centuries-old oaks of the gods' wood. branches wept sap like blood. Tywin commanded from rear knoll, dispatching reserves precisely where Stark lines swelled. By late afternoon, crimson and gold pressed through a breach, Ramsay's bastard spearmen carving a swath. Yet within the courtyard, gray wind lunged, teeth red, scattering ranks. Robb fought astride a bay destrier, long sword flickering. Each arc felled a Lannister sergeant. Snow dissolved into mud trampled by dying men. Twilight descended in copper haze. Trumpets signaled a feint at the north wall. Marbrand's riders stormed from the south behind shields lashed together. They burst gates weakened by previous ram strikes, pouring into Market Square. Robb countercharged, but a Lannister arrow, loosed by a crossbowman Tywin, had hand-selected for steady nerves. Pierced the young wolf's thigh and horse stumbled. Dire Wolf howled and leapt to shield master, hamstringing a Brax captain. Yet spears closed. Somewhere within that maelstrom, sword met sinew, gray wind fell, and Robb Stark shouted for friend and father before being dragged toward the white trunk of the burning weirwood. When dark finally cloaked battlefield, ravens perched silent across the yard as if summoned by tree spirits to witness. Tywin strode through corpses, crimson cloak flecked black. He found Robb propped against the weirwood, blood pooling at its roots, hands bound by length of damp cloth torn from his own banner. The youth's breath rattled, yet eyes still sharp with anger and loss. Tywin dismissed guards a dozen paces. Snowflakes hissed against distant fires. "You waged war for honor," Tywin said, voice quiet. "Honor killed you." Robb laughed once. A rasp of sound, half cough. "Not yet. Soon." Tywin knelt, surprising even himself. "Your banners die with you. Let them live as vassals, and I grant your mother safe passage to Riverrun, your sisters honored seats, your bannermen the right to return north unmolested." Robb's gaze drifted to Grey Wind's lifeless bulk. "Promises. Words on my name. Your name stinks of ash in the Riverlands." Robb coughed red. "Still, my mother would weep less if my death saved thousands." "You swear." "I swear by the rock and by my blood." Robb nodded once, then winced as lungs constricted. He struggled to speak again. Tywin leaned closer. The words were faint but clear. "Tell Sansa, I'm sorry." He did not say for what, perhaps for a broken betrothal, perhaps for a war he could not win. His head tilted, breath fled. Snow whispered down upon his lashes. Tywin stood, signaled captain. "Bury him beneath the weirwood. Let his gods witness my oath kept." Some knights protested. They would rather parade the body, but Tywin's glare silenced them. War ended sooner when respect mingled with terror. Over following days, raven after raven departed with terms of reparation. Karstark surrendered at the Twins. Umber Host laid down axes at Last Hearth. Even Manderley capitulated. Wyman's hunger for sons superseded defiance. The North bent knee in stages, not all at once, yet winter's looming teeth hastened compliance. Ramsay remained warden under Lannister oversight, his cruelty restrained, as best cruelty could be, by threat of lion justice hanging like Damocles' blade. Tywin marched south triumphant but heavy of mind. Visions of dragons haunted strategic councils. Word arrived that Daenerys had quit Meereen sailing west with 7 ships and a horde of freedmen. Varys whispered of Sellsword companies deserting Yunkai to join her, of a Braavosi banker meeting her in secret. Tywin accelerated development of the Great Harbor Chain, and Qyburn produced curious Scorpion siege engines fitted with winches powerful enough to hurl iron bolts the girth of a man's thigh. Back in the capital, festivities greeted his victory. But underlying gaiety thrummed unease, plague of grayscale spotted in Fisherman's Quarter. Rumors that Joffrey had arranged midnight hunts of starving prisoners released in the Kingswood for sport. Whispers that Marjorie's perfume masked tea of moon tea brew. Tywin resumed governance as one might triage battlefield wounded. Cauterize bleeding first, mend bones later. He replaced half the Gold Cloak captains with Westerman veterans loyal to the Rock. He curtailed Joffrey's private guard to a dozen, all answerable to Kevin. He installed Silent Sisters hospices near Flea Bottom to quarantine illness before it spread. Spring tipped toward summer. Ships bearing dragon banners were sighted near Lys but then vanished. Tywin spent sleepless nights drawing circles across the sunset sea on parchment, projecting landings from Dorne to Cape Wrath. He ordered Maester Pylus to perfect raven relays that could fly non-stop from Old Town to Storm's End within a day. He commanded Redwynes to build heavier rams and slings should scaled beasts assail hulls. War never ended. It only changed faces. One humid evening, as torches guttered low, Tyrion Lannister returned unannounced. He rode through the mud gate beneath hooded cloak, limping, followed by 40 Sellswords wearing gull feathers on helms, the Gulltown guard now sworn to his purse. Tywin summoned him to the Tower of the Hand at once. Tyrion greeted his father with wry bow and presented ledgers showing Gulltown coffers fattened, piracy along narrow sea curtailed, and a new mint open striking coin bearing not lion nor stag but the combined sigil of king and queen, symbol of unity gained by the imp without consent. Tywin set the ledger aside, studied his son. Ambition suits you, and results. Undeniable. Then perhaps exile served us both. Tywin allowed one corner of mouth to tip like blade edge. Stay a fortnight, advised the treasury, then return. The Vale must anchor east trade. He paused, weighing words. Your talents are valuable, Tyrion. Do not force me to clip their wings. Tyrion's laugh was soft. The bird sings sweeter free. But he agreed, albeit with a condition. Shay to join him openly. Tywin deliberated, then conceded, on grounds she be ennobled minorly, a lady of empty keep near River Row, far below suitors but above scullery. Tyrion accepted, though eyes glinted with some private jest. Food stores swelled as harvests rolled in behind Tyrell wagons. Coin returned to city fountains. Even jesters found new jokes praising marriage of lion and rose bringing perpetual summer. Yet beneath veneer, fishers waited. Dorne still rankled over Elia, though Oberyn played polite viper. The faith militant petitioned to rearm. Qyburn's black cells whispered of experiments none dared inspect. Tywin kept each threat on separate shelf of mind, aligning counters like chessmen. Finally, on a day when sun blazed merciless and sea winds carried cries of gulls that sounded like distant trumpets, a Braavosi cog docked bearing parchment smudged with ash. The seal showed three-headed dragon aflame. Tywin broke it and read, Daenerys Targaryen accepted invitation of Prince Doran to cross sands into Dorne under guest right. 3 dragons flew in her vanguard. The letter ended with courteous request for safe passage to King's Landing to discuss matters of peace. Tywin lowered the scroll. All the wars he had fought, all the snares woven, all the bodies buried beneath snow and mud. Now they coalesced into singular point of fire descending from sky. He looked toward the window where thrumming heat made air above rooftops shimmer. In that wavering haze, he almost imagined wings casting shadow across the city. Almost. He summoned small council at once. Cersei arrived in gold brocade stiff as armor. Joffrey stomped petulant, fury plain that dragons might steal his audience. Marjorie sat serene. Varys folded hands like prayer. Kevan stood to Tywin's right, silent sentinel. Tywin laid parchment on table. The game changes, he said. Pieces we traded now face a board aflame. We must decide whether fire may be bargained with, or whether we douse it in blood before it spreads. Silence settled thick as summer dusk. Through windows drifted hum of city preparing twilight meal. Unaware destiny balanced on breath inside a single chamber. Tywin's eyes swept the council, seeing fear, ambition, hunger, and came to rest upon steel-shod resolve within himself. We meet the dragon, he said, as lions, robed in gold, not cowering in ashes. Thus orders flew like sparks. Envoys to Sunspear bearing chests of red gold and sweeter promises. Engineers to ramparts filing scorpion bolts barbs to razor finish. Maesters commanded to unseal dusty scrolls describing Maegor's slaying of Balerian's brood. Each task a thread pulled tight, yet Tywin knew threads alone could not bind Dragonfire. So, deep in the night, he walked alone to Maegor's holdfast, traversed narrow passage into forgotten vault where wildfire vials lined niches like emerald stalactites. He regarded their sickly glow, reflections painting his face monstrous. If fire begets fire, he whispered. Then let mine burn brighter. He ordered 6 wagons prepared, casks sealed, destinations known only to himself and Kevin. When dawn spilled pale over Blackwater again, Tywin stood upon balcony as always, wind cool against brow. Below, gulls circled, ships' masts creaked. The world turned blind to tomorrow's storm. Somewhere beyond the horizon, dragon wings beat ever closer. Yet as he watched gray water glimmer, he felt no tremor of doubt. He had survived wildfire and wolves, traitors and kings, siege and snow. He would survive dragons, or turn their bones to dust upon the rock of Casterly and write a final line so stark that even 7 gods would pause to read it. And with that resolve he turned back toward halls that bore his sigil, ready to shape day once more, lion quiet, unbowed, the steady anvil upon which fate's relentless hammer must break itself until no sparks remained but those he chose to wield. The morning sun bled across the ramparts of the Red Keep like a slow-spilled chalice, turning the pale stone amber while Tywin Lannister contemplated the letter spread before him. Words inked in a steady Braavosi hand addressed him not as Hand of the King, nor as Lord of Casterly Rock, but as Tywin of House Lannister, Master of Realms in Turmoil. That delicate choice of title, neither slighting Joffrey's crown nor ignoring the iron reality of governance, told him everything about the girl whose seal branded the parchment. Daenerys Targaryen's scribe reported her landfall at Sunspear. 3 dragons quartered in cavernous stables along the Bone Way, an escort of Dornish spears ringed by Unsullied, a court of eunuchs, freed slaves, and Sellsword captains asleep beneath silk pavilions outshining the Martell tents themselves. She requested safe passage to King's Landing with no banners raised save those of negotiation. She asked also that a delegation ride south to meet her, proof Tywin understood well. She wished to appraise her enemy before committing to friend or foe. Tywin reread the florid salutations until the letters blurred. Then he folded the parchment once, twice, slid it into a plain leather case, and bound it with red twine. When he looked up, Kevin waited in the doorway, eyes questioning. Tywin spoke in a voice the ravens might have mistaken for the scrape of steel on stone. Send word to Sunspear. Prince Doran will host the Queen under guest right. He will also remind her that the Iron Throne mourns Prince Rhaegar yet has no quarrel with his sister. Pause. I will ride to meet her at Vaith. Kevin's brows lifted. You trust the road? I trust that dragons prefer open skies to tight streets. Better we speak beneath calm sun than under panicked rooftops. Who rides with you? Ser Adam, 70 Lion Guard, 12 Tyrell Knights so Highgarden can witness every word. Varys disguised as a scribe, and Maester Balabar with every chart we possess on dragon anatomy. Kevin exhaled a humorless laugh. You intend to dissect her beasts with conversation? With conversation and contingency. Tywin turned toward the window where the city stirred. Carts groaning under barley sacks, bells announcing the change of watch, gulls hovering over the fishmonger's docks. If parley fails, I must already see the shape of war. The column left King's Landing before dawn 2 days later. Mist clung to the Blackwater like pale gauze as the party crossed the muddy ford below the Dragon Gate and angled south along the Rose Road. Joffrey stood atop the battlements in full gilded plate, watching. His mother at his side wore an expression pinned somewhere between fury and dread. Tywin did not look back. He carried no banners save a single crimson pennon stitched with a lion rampant small enough to be mistaken for the sigil of a minor house escorting some middling diplomat. Appearance of humility without actual surrender of pride. The first league passed in silence broken only by Tack Creek and distant heron calls. Then Varys, swaddled in travel robes, coaxed his mule alongside Tywin's destrier. What greeting shall we craft for the mother of dragons, my lord? One hears she values courtesy nearly as much as liberation. Tywin kept his eyes forward. We greet her as a sovereign seeking alliance. We do not kneel. We do not brandish threat. We show we can end a war or win it. And if she believes her dragons enough to guarantee the latter, then we show her wildfire burns hotter than dragonflame when casks outnumber wings. Varys bowed his hooded head. A convincing argument, provided she knows the count of casks. She will. You will whisper it. The spider smiled thinly. Then let us pray her grace favors arithmetic over blood. They camped that night beneath the straggling limbs of a half-shattered god's wood along the banks of the Windwater. Stars threw cold pinpricks through skeletal branches. In the flicker of campfires, Tywin studied Maester Balabar's scrolls, old Valyrian field notes copied from high tower vaults, sketches of nerve clusters at wing joints, speculation on scaled plate over heart or throat. Balabar, nervous and eager, pointed to passages describing great bolts tipped in heavy eye. Ron driven from scorpions of Gisker make. When struck in the soft underbelly just behind the forelimb, records say Valyrian hissed like iron dipped in brine, he murmured. A second bolt in the nostril cavity drove him skyward, raving. Tywin nodded. Interesting. If a dragon sits docile while scorpions aim. He closed the scroll. But knowledge is arrow insurance. As embers dimmed, Ser Adam approached, helm tucked under his arm, face gray with fatigue. Scouts report Martell outriders shadowing us. No aggression. They shadow her more than us, Tywin said. So long as they watch, we sleep. He slept 3 hours on a straw pallet, dreams void of image, only the faint smell of sulfur and the whisper of wings. At Vaith, orange banners embroidered with sun spears snapped in desert wind as Prince Doran's litter awaited the approaching lions. A broad plaza stretched before the fortress's cistern tower, white sandstone veined with red quartz. Tywin dismounted, boots crunching grit. He bowed, no more than courtesy, to Doran, who remained reclined atop silk cushions, gout-swollen feet concealed by a purple mantle. "My prince," Tywin greeted. "The realm thanks your hospitality." Doran's voice creaked like dusty hinges. "The realm has seldom thanked Dorn, Lord Tywin. Let us see if your gratitude proves less fleeting than some promises past." Tywin ignored the barb. The Dragon Queen? Camped 4 miles east beyond the dunes. She travels only by afternoon, that her creatures might stretch wings in cooling air. She wishes you to join her table at sunset. Then we will ride once horses drink. Tywin's gaze drifted toward the horizon where heat eddies blinked silver. Somewhere beyond, 3 beasts dozed in shade, fires banked in bellies. He gestured for his men to water mounts, then strode to the well's edge, studying his reflection rippling under rope buckets. For a moment, it was not a lion he saw, but an old man whose gaunt cheeks hinted at sleepless nights. He pressed gloved fingers to the stone rim, steadying. By late afternoon, the delegation rode again, leaving Martell banners fluttering behind. Sand smelled of salt and spice. Hot wind carried faint notes of citrus. As the dunes parted, Tywin glimpsed Canvas City. Circular palisade of spears, bright silks pitched like petals around a central pavilion white as moonlit bone. Above it, perched on a ridge of rose-tinged rock, sprawled a dragon, green-gold scales shimmering, wings half unfurled to catch breeze. Closer still, 2 smaller reptiles dozed near a shallow pool, smoke trickling from slitted nostrils. Soldiers in lacquered armor stood watch, unsullied, every man's gaze blank and absolute. Trumpets sounded. An honor guard approached, Missandei of Noth at its head, soft-spoken, smiling with eyes not unkind. "Lord Tywin Lannister," she announced, "Hand of King Joffrey of the House Baratheon, Lord of the West, Warden of the Gold Road, invites audience with Daenerys Stormborn, of the blood of old Valyria, Queen of the Undulls, the Rhoynar, and the First Men." Tywin inclined his head. "I accept." He left helm and gauntlets with Ser Adam, signaling all weapons stayed in sheaths. He walked alone through parted ranks of Unsullied. The late sun painted his armor in copper glare. Inside the pavilion, air was cool, perfumed with myrrh and lemon blossom. Cushions ringed a low ebony table carved with coiling dragons. At its far side, Daenerys Targaryen rose from a wicker throne, none of her famed youth diminished by road dust. White hair fell in braids peppered with slivers of obsidian beads. A simple riding dress of midnight blue set her eyes glowing violet. She fixed Tywin with calm, neither hostile nor friendly, keen, measuring. "Lord Tywin," she said, voice steady as a still pool. I wondered what lion face would greet the dragon queen. My father once called on you to save his throne. Tywin matched her gaze. Your father demanded wildfire burn a city to cinders. I spared 500,000 lives by ignoring him, and seated Robert Baratheon on the throne built for dragons. She gestured to a cushion opposite. Sit. Let us speak of thrones. They sat. Servants poured wine dark as garnets. Outside, the growl of a dragon rolled like distant thunder. Tywin spoke first. You request passage to King's Landing. I intend to reclaim what my family forged with flame and blood, but I have learned cities resist rescue when chains are rusted deep. I would see your court, meet your king, weigh hearts before choosing war. Tywin sipped wine, tasted of smoke and berries. Your dragons pose threat enough that you need not test our hospitality. Yet you seek parley. Why? Because I wish to rule, not ruin. Fire is last language. I prefer earlier tongues. Tywin acknowledged with slight nod. If you intend rule, you will find a realm exhausted. Farmers bleeding fields to taxes, nobles nursing grudges, winter creeping south. Dragons may warm the air, but they will not plow it.
You propose alliance.
I propose reality. Joffrey Baratheon wears the crown. The Reach, the Rock, half the Riverlands, and much of the North support him. Remove him, you inherit their fury. Keep him, you may rule beside his wife's cousin under regency until realm accepts new order. He leaned forward. Marry Tommen. A child's crown may rest more easily on a maiden's brow. Daenerys's laughter surprised him, soft, genuine. You offer me a child's hand, so you may keep your line entwined round the throne like a golden vine. Her expression hardened. I will not be broodmare to Lannister legacy. Then you will be conqueror. Conquerors breed revolt. Your father taught you fear. She lifted a hand. The tent flaps stirred, desert air rushing. A shadow loomed, green gold wings folding as dragon head thrust inward. One amber eye, slitted pupil, fixed on Tywin. Heat wafted like forge breath. Tywin's pulse quickened but voice remained iron. And yet I sit. He did not flinch. The dragon's nostrils flared, tasting. Then the beast withdrew. Flap closed. Daenerys regarded him. Courage well displayed, Lord Tywin. Courage without foresight is folly. Dragonflame cannot burn wildfire casks hidden under every street of King's Landing. Your beasts torch the Red Keep. They ignite the city's bowels. 500,000 die, dragons included. Silence bent between them. Tywin let danger crystallize. Daenerys let it settle. Finally, she spoke softer. What would you have of me? Stability, end of war, a realm where harvest outweighs sword. He set his goblet down. A council comprised of fire and lion, rose and sunspear, wolf when wolves forgive. Your name on decrees, Joffrey's stamp beside. In 5 years you will command hearts. In 10, crown may pass by lawful vote of great council. Regency in all but proclamation. Rulership in practice, peace in parchment. Children grown not among ashes but among laughter. Her gaze drifted to tent ceiling where lamplight danced. I have seen children crucified in Meereen, Lord Tywin. Peace is often promise made by those who profit from quiet. She folded hands. Yet I will consider. Prince Doran offers escort to the capital. I will ride with half my host. Leave dragons at Sunspear until parley concludes. Strategy blossomed behind Tywin's eyes. Dragons penned in desert safe by sea. City spared immediate threat. Time to strengthen scorpions, muster sails. He bowed. Wise. Not wise, hopeful. She rose. We depart at dawn. He stood. I will ride ahead to prepare council. Outside, sunset bled purple over dunes. Tywin rejoined his guard, issued orders. Ser Adam raised a brow. Parley fruitful? A seed planted. And if seed fails to sprout? Then we water tables with iron. 5 days' march returned Tywin to King's Landing. The city swarmed like a hive struck by staff. Rumor of dragons in Dorne already spread. Some merchants packed wagons for flight. Septons preached morning sermons promising judgment. Smiths hammered desperate orders for blackened shields. Tywin convened the small council. Joffrey pounded table. No dragon upstart sets foot in My City. Tywin's voice sliced through. She comes as guest under Dornish protection. She will be treated with every courtesy accorded a queen, because if you slight her, she burns us, wildfire or no. Cersei glared. You place more faith in her word than your own blood. I place faith in leverage. Dragons in desert are leverage we keep. Dragons enraged are calamity we cannot leash. Littlefinger twirled his quill. A lavish reception then, perhaps a tourney in her honor? Wagers on whether Tyrell lances outshine dragon claws. Tywin ignored him. He commanded preparations. Remove wildfire stock from visible barrel yards. Double gold cloaks on walls. Install the giant harbor chain but conceal with floating pontoons topped by flower boxes so it appeared decorative. Qyburn's scorpion designs rolled from workshops to ramparts disguised as signal towers. 3 weeks later, watchers on the Red Keep's Merlin Tower glimpsed sails cresting Blackwater. Dornish dramens gilded in copper, flanked by trim Braavosi cogs. Atop each mast snapped banners. Sunspear entwined with three-headed dragon on red field. Cannons of rumor boomed across city squares. Crowds pressed along quays to glimpse legend. Tywin observed from behind crenellations. No dragons shadowed overhead, only gulls. The procession from docks wound up the Street of Sisters. Unsullied rank upon rank, Dornish spearmen in orange silk, freed women scattering rose petals. Mid-column, Daenerys rode a white palfrey, silver hair glinting like starlight. At her side, Prince Oberyn, unexpected, wore a rasping grin. Tywin allowed himself a breath. Oberyn's presence signaled Doran's deeper hand, one both shrewd and vengeful. The court welcomed them in throne room gleaming with polished blades. Joffrey sat crowned, Marjorie radiant, Cersei stiff. Tywin stood one step below dais, hand on lion pommel cane. Heralds cried titles. Daenerys approached, bowed head without kneeling. "Your Grace," she said to Joffrey, voice carrying, "I come a guest under the Sunspear's peace." Joffrey managed a stiff nod, words clearly rehearsed. King's Landing extends hospitality to Queen Daenerys of House Targaryen. Court exhaled. Musicians struck harps. Feasting commenced in Maidenvault, where once Aegon V confined his sisters. Tywin ensured seating placed Marjorie between Daenerys and Joffrey, a wall of charm tempering impulsive pride. He himself conversed with Oberyn in low tones. "You fear the dragons," the Red Viper murmured, sipping arbor red. "I fear war without remedy," Tywin replied. "Dorne remembers children dashed against walls." Oberyn's smile did not reach eyes. "Blood for blood. One day perhaps. But children alive now should not pay debts owed by graves." Spoken like a man whose house is ripe with heirs. Oberyn tilted his goblet. "Yet I watch. Should peace waver, Dorne's daggers slip." Tywin met his gaze. Daggers paired with lions might slit war's throat before it roars. Oberyn's grin widened. Across the table, Tyrion, arrived in time for revels, observed interplay with raised brow. Later, he cornered Tywin behind a column shaped as maiden's braid. "Father, you juggle wildfire jars over a bonfire of egos." Tywin's response, "Better my grip than yours, imp." Tyrion chuckled. "True, I prefer wine goblets." Speaking of, Daenerys seems fond of Dornish sweet speech. Might she find you too flint to share throne? She will find necessity strong mortar. They parted as minstrels launched into Myrish love ballad. Negotiations began next dawn in the Tower of the Hands-Painted Solar. Tywin, Daenerys, Varys, Marjorie as silent witness, Oberyn representing Dorne, and Maester Balabar with quills. Joffrey was notably absent. Tywin insisted he remain at Hunt. Daenerys opened. "I seek a council representing all 7 kingdoms. I will not kneel to a boy who tortures animals." Tywin countered, "Kneeling is posture. Power is policy." Accept regency with Joffrey as figurehead. Reform small council. Seats for Targaryen, Martell, Tyrell, Aeryn, Greyjoy if they cease raids. She shook her head. Regency is cage. I propose comonarchy. Myself as queen regnant, Joffrey as king consort. 2 crowns, equal. Marjorie's eyes widened. Varys's quill froze. Tywin steepled fingers. Equal crowns breed rivalry. Realms shatter. Or strengthen, Daenerys argued. Fire and gold fused create Valyrian steel. Oberyn drawled. Balance is blade double-edged, but sharp indeed. Tywin considered. Accept limited dual monarchy until Joffrey's majority, with Targaryen veto on war measures, Lannister veto on tax edicts. After 5 years, Great Council to confirm arrangement. Daenerys lifted chin. Add an article abolishing slavery in any port flying royal banners. Done. And the right of the crown to field investigation into ecclesiastical corruption. Faith militant harbors zealots harming small folk. Tywin agreed. They wrote, struck, rewrote clauses as sun crawled west. At dusk they parted with parchment half full of hope, half minefield. Yet storms brewed. That evening, Joffrey returned from hunt flushed with wine, fury ignited by news of dragon bitch demands. He stormed into council chamber, flanked by 2 giggling squires, brandishing crossbow still strung. She wants my throne? I'll mount her head like stag. Cersei tried to soothe. Tywin arrived in time to catch Joffrey's arm. You will unstring the bow, he said softly. Joffrey yanked free, eyes bright with feverish spleen. You side with her. Maybe you want her in your bed, old man. Silence fell. Tywin did not shout. He simply raised his hand. Ser Meryn stepped forward, relieved the king of crossbow, bowed. Joffrey sputtered before stalking off. Tywin stared after him, an ache blooming under his sternum. A king more dangerous than dragons. Next morning a dead unsullied appeared on the steps of the Great September. Arrow in throat bearing crimson fletching of Lannister longbows. Riots threatened as freedmen shouted betrayal. Joffrey denied involvement, but rumor named him. Daenerys' eyes burned. Tywin convened emergency council, presented evidence of Sells-word infiltration forging Lannister shafts. Varys produced prisoner confessing a bribe from Myr, hoping to spark war. Tensions eased but cracks widened. Oberyn whispered to Daenerys in gardens. The hand leashes boy king but boy bites. She listened and stroked a rose whose thorns drew blood. That night, Joffrey's personal kennel burned. Hounds roasted alive. Lannister guards blamed Dornish spies. Dornish swore innocence. Flames of suspicion licked at patched peace. Tywin pressed on. He granted Daenerys tours of grain stores, smithies, orphanages funded by Lannister gold. She walked incognito among small folk. Many bowed, others begged, some cursed. She fed children from her own purse. Word spread, hearts tilted. Then ships arrived from Pentos. Volantene galleys flying tiger stripes. Ambassadors requested audience with Queen Daenerys, offering gold for trade exclusives if she seized port customs. Tywin saw peril, external powers backing her alone. He met the ambassadors first, warning of exclusivity taxes should they circumvent crown. They backed away, yet rumors still whispered of foreign coin lining dragon coffers. During feast on eve of wedding tourney scheduled to celebrate the new accord, Marjorie performed a song alongside blind harpist. Joffrey heckled, hurling pie crusts. Tywin's knuckles whitened. Daenerys watched, lips thin. When the harpist faltered, Joffrey commanded dwarfs to dance. One slipped, cracked skull. Laughter echoed. Tywin rose as if to intervene, but Daenerys spoke, calm yet blade sharp. Your Grace, in Meereen we punish cruelty to innocence with lash. Perhaps King's Landing could adopt such custom. The hall froze. Joffrey teetered between rage and embarrassment. Tywin signaled singers to strike up tune. Night ended strained. Oberyn visited Tywin in Solar thereafter. You cannot contain that boy. Strike him or dragons will. You would have me depose my blood? I would have you save thousands. The Red Viper's voice quieted. Dorne will not shield tyrant. Tywin's mind churned. Remove Joffrey, Tommen next in line, pliable, beloved. Marjorie could remain queen. Daenerys might accept co-regency with child. Could realm stomach regicide mere moons after wedding to reach? Could Cersei? The question gnawed. At dawn, Tywin climbed the Tower of the Hand alone, parchment blank in one hand. He watched sunrise paint rooftops gold, the same rooftops he nearly sacrificed under Aerys, the same he now might sacrifice under his grandson's folly. Duty to legacy or duty to realm? He thought of a little girl handed a golden stag amid charnel smoke, of Tomard the spearman facing fear, the realm's root. He sat at writing desk. Words flowed. A royal edict calling for Joffrey's abdication on grounds of infirm mind, witnessed by Tyrell, Martell, Arryn, and submitted to Great Council. Regency to Queen Daenerys and Prince Tommen until Tommen's majority. He sanded ink, sealed with hand's signet. Footsteps outside, Cersei burst in, blonde hair wild. She clutched torn scrap, copy of edict. Betrayal, she hissed. You would strip my son? I would save him, Tywin said. Save thousands. You think Daenerys will spare Lannisters after you set her above us? She understands peace better than you think. Cersei's eyes glistened. I will not let you murder another child of mine. In her trembling hand, Tywin saw a glint of dagger. He did not step back. Put it down. She advanced. You never loved us. Only power. In power, I loved you. He held her gaze, lion to lioness, but saw only storm. She lunged. Blade kissed his mail collar, scraped. His reflex swift. He seized her wrist. Dagger clattered. Guards rushed as Cersei collapsed, sobbing rage. Tywin dismissed them with gesture, raised her chin. Stand. Queens do not kneel to grief. She spat. I will be queen no longer the moment your dragon whore mounts the throne. Then stand as mother. Protect Tommen. I'll protect Joffrey. She wrenched free and fled. Tywin breathed deep. The die cast. Only timing remained. Tournament day dawned bright. Flags fluttered. Lists adorned with roses and lions. Knights jousted. Common folk cheered. Golden circuit of coin-fueled drink. In royal box sat Joffrey, crimson silk shining. Marjorie at his side. Daenerys adjoining. Tywin behind them, expression carved. Loras Tyrell tilted against red wine champion. Splintered lance showering stands. Amid roar, a lone figure hurried to Tywin. Pycelle, beard quivering. My lord, gray cloaks report wildfire cache missing from Sept's storeroom. For casks. Tywin's mind flashed. Cersei. He scanned crowd, her seat empty. A final tilt, Loras raised lance to salute queen. Joffrey seized goblet of wine, sipped, then coughed. Purple blossomed across lips. Gasps rippled. Tywin lunged, but Joffrey convulsed, eyes bulging. Cersei appeared, screaming, Poison! She pointed at Daenerys, who stood stunned. Chaos exploded. Guards seized the Dragon Queen. Dornish spears closed rank. Tywin's roar cut air. Stay! But too late. Crossbow bolt hissed from balcony, striking unsullied shield. Another, then flaming arrow arced high, trailing green-tinged cloth soaked in wildfire. It fell toward balcony where nobility clustered. At same moment, Tywin saw Cersei clutch a torch near draped banners saturated by missing casks fluid. Flames erupted, green tongues slashing upward. Screams. Tywin shoved Marjorie aside, yanked burning. Cloth from stone, flung over balustrade into sand arena where wildfire splashed but caught only dirt. Smoke billowed. Lannister guards doused fabric. Tyrell knights hustled royal children away. Joffrey lay slack, purpled, dead. Cersei, hair singed, knelt beside body. She glared at Daenerys. Dragon whore poisoned him. Daenerys shouted over flames. I poisoned no one. I came in peace. Tywin's voice thundered. Arrest no one until truth found. But gold cloaks looked to Cersei. Some advanced on Daenerys. unsullied lowered spears. Then the roar, not of crowd, but of Cielo. Black shadow crossed sun, dragon wings great and terrible. Drogon dove, shriek splitting sky, smoke curling from jaws. He circled, landed atop gatehouse, snarling at throng. Panic erupted. People stampeded. Tywin stood as sand whipped his cloak. He locked eyes with Daenerys. She raised hand, murmured Valyrian. Drogon's pupils narrowed. He stilled. Tension hung like drawn bow. Bar the roar of flames. Silence. Oberyn stepped forward, dagger unblooded. Poison came not from dragon, he intoned. I saw a dwarf jester slip away near Chalice. Where is he? I searched. Fool gone. In memory, Tywin recalled crossbow japes, dwarfs in wolf helms. Resentment. Tyrion? No, absent. Shay claimed he left city, but shadows breed suspicion. Cersei rose, tear-streaked, and spat. It was Tyrion. He killed my son. She pointed trembling finger at Tywin. Your twisted spawn. The dwarf you protect. Tywin opened mouth, then closed. In that instant, his world retched. Son accused, daughter raging, dragon perched, city burning at edges. He raised hands. We will find truth. Till then, a roar of Drogon cut him off. Flames burst toward sky, not at people, warning. Unsullied parted as Daenerys walked to Tywin. Your city bleeds. Grant me leave with my host to Dragon Pit. There my beasts rest outside walls. Investigate. Call me when innocence clear. Tywin nodded once, decision forged by necessity. Go. I will contain this. She mounted gray horse. Drogon took wing, shadow rippling over Red Keep. Crowd shrank back, awed. Tywin turned to gold cloaks. Secure the Queen Mother. Quarantine the crime scene. No one leaves city until my order. You would chain me? Cersei screamed, lunging. Guards gentled her, though tears cut cheeks more than force. Marjorie clutched Tommen, who wept. Tywin knelt before boy. The realm needs you now. Be strong. He hugged him, rare, brief. Then rose as storm clouds formed in mind. Succession crisis, public panic, Dornish anger, Targaryen doubt, Tyrion unknown. For 3 nights city churned.
Tywin interrogated vintners, cupbearers, piemakers.
Crossbowmen found slain in alley. Tongue removed. Shay arrested fleeing Rivergate. None knew what she carried. Under torture she confessed being paid by a man with a mockingbird brooch. Littlefinger fled before capture. His barge found drifting down Blackwater. Evidence mounted. Dwarf jester found dead. Wine amphora traced to Stormland's broker loyal to Stannis. Vial of strangler poison in barrel bearing Baelish sigil. Threads knotted into tapestry of manipulation. But public cared only that king lay cold. In council chamber, Tyrells demanded swift crowning of Tommen. Cersei demanded Tyrion's head. Martells threatened departure if Daenerys blamed. Above chessboard of grievances Tywin hovered, sleepless. Varys returned bloodied from dock pursuit of Baelish agents. He offered report. Littlefinger orchestrated, aligning with Stannis to cast blame on dragon and dwarf, fracture alliances. Tywin digested, but Cersei lit wildfire, perhaps to frame dragons further, or to kill many and blame them. Her grief ran mad. Tywin rubbed eyes. She remains Queen Mother, cannot stand trial yet. Dawn of 4th day, ravens called from Dragon Pit. Daenerys sought audience. Tywin rode under guard. Dragon Pit's broken dome housed 3 dragons chained to carved pillars. Their eyes tracked each visitor. Daenerys greeted him with calm sorrow. I mourn the boy, she said, in Myrine children killed for rulers' sins. I will not see repeat. Tywin studied her, lines deeper around eyes. Evidence clears you, but realm still bristles. Then truth must be sung loud. She produced scroll, Littlefinger's letters intercepted at stepstones to Stannis promising chaos. Signatures clear. Expose him, she said, and name dwarf innocent. Tywin hesitated. Tyrion fled, not guilty, but public thirst for culprit. Offer him. She shook head.
No.
In Meereen, I crucified masters without trial and earned ghosts haunting sleep. Justice, not scapegoat. Tywin's respect deepened amid icy dread. Justice fragile. He nodded. We will present findings to Great September at dawn tomorrow. As he turned, Daenerys' voice stopped him. Hand of the king. Who rules now? Technically, Tommen under regency. And who is regent? Council will decide. Beware council full of mothers who lost sons. She stroked Drogon's snout. Wounds bleed ambition. He left with thought heavy. Night before assembly, Tywin drafted edicts. Appoint High Septon impartial judge. Summon Stannis to face conspiracy charges. Declare Littlefinger traitor. He placed them within red leather case. He also wrote private letter to Kevin. Should I fall, crown Tommen with Marjorie, accept Daenerys as protector of realm until majority. He sealed wax. Sleep eluded. At dawn, bells tolled. Plaza before Great September flooded with lords, small folk. Tywin ascended marble steps flanked by gold cloaks. Beside him, Tommen walked trembling, Cersei veiled in black behind, Marjorie at Tommen's side, Daenerys and Oberyn opposite. Grand Maester Pycelle carried scrolls. High Septon waited. Tywin's voice rang. He laid out evidence, denounced Littlefinger, exonerated the Dragon Queen, declared Tyrion wrongfully accused. Murmurs rippled. Some cheers, some gasps. Cersei shrieked, ripping veil, accusing Tywin of lies, but crowd booed, wildfire memory fresh. She attempted to strike him. Guards restrained. Tywin then proclaimed Tommen Baratheon king, with Regency Council of 5. Tywin, Daenerys, Marjorie, Doran in proxy of Oberyn, and Kevin. Shock waves. Sudden hush. From far steps, figure in gray cloak stepped. Tyrion. Face gaunt, beard scraggled. He bowed. I surrender to realm's judgment, though innocence proclaimed. Tywin's heart twisted. He spoke. Charges dropped. Justice done. Cheers, they loved dwarf again. Peace seemed to ripple. Arrow whistled. From roof across square. It struck Tywin's shoulder, jerked him. Immediate chaos. Second arrow aimed at Tommen deflected by Marjorie's arm. She cried out. Guards scrambled. On roof, black-armored archer knocked again. Sons of the Harpy insignia? No sigil of Mockingbird. Ser Adam loosed crossbow. Archer toppled into street. Tywin swayed. Blood-soaked doublet. Cersei screamed, rushing forward. He waved her back, hand glistening red. Daenerys hurried, pressing cloth. Stay still. Drogon's roar carried from pit though miles away. Tywin's vision tunneled. He focused on Tommen's tear-streaked face. Remember, he whispered. Fear is sword, hold it. He looked at Daenerys. Peace, forge it. She gripped his hand. We will. He sank to knees. Sounds faded. Bells, cries, flapping wings of pigeons startled. In last sliver of sight he saw banners, lion, dragon, stag, blending crimson in dawn haze. Iron taste in mouth. Thoughts flickered. A promise to a girl on charnel pyre. The weight of infant brother he once cradled. Father's shame turned to gold. A city he saved by fire. A city he saved by restraint. Scales balanced. He closed eyes, but breath persisted. Maester Balabar bound wound. Arrow missed lung. Carried inside sept. Tywin faded into sleep laced with poppy. In dream, he walked the length of a great golden chain from Lannisport to Old Valyria, each link a choice. Behind him, footsteps smaller, deliberate Tyrion's perhaps, or Tommen's. Ahead, Dragon's sword, but their fire warmed rather than burned. When he woke days later, candlelight flickered. Tyrion sat bedside, tossing coin. You're too stubborn to die, dwarf muttered. Tywin rasped. How fares realm? Still arguing, but not burning. Daenerys and Marjorie run circles around Septons while Kevin manages coin. Oberyn teaches Tommen how to wield spear, pointy end forward. He grinned. Tywin managed faint smile. And you, off to Bravos. Queen orders envoy to Iron Bank. Serve her. I intend. He stood. Rest, father. Dragons may be tamed, but Lannister stubbornness. Never. He departed. Tywin gazed at ceiling, mind-clearing. Peace still fragile as glass. But he was alive, and while breath remained, the lion would guard the forge. Outside, bells tolled not for death but for prayer of unity. A dragon cried from distant pit, answer carried by gulls. Far across sunset-steeped rooftops, wildfire casks slept, scorpions slumbered, harbor chain gleamed. And amid these tools of ruin, seeds of concord twisted roots through cracked stone, watered by grudging respect and hard-won justice. Tywin closed his eyes once more, not in death but in contemplation, envisioning a throne room where lion and dragon banners hung side by side, where a boy king listened to counsel, where a queen born in fire steered hearts, where blades melted into plowshares. He would rise again to hammer future into shape. For now, the realm breathed, and he with it, each inhalation a quiet roar that whispered through dim corridors. Not yet finished. And beyond walls, in alleys washed by starlight, children laughed, chasing a green-painted wooden dragon carving lazy arcs above their heads, imagining themselves riders of dawn rather than orphans of war. Their laughter drifted to tower tops, mingling with the low rumble of the lion's ever-watchful heart.